Welcome, Let Freedom Ring. Wishing everybody out there a happy holidays. I can't believe how fast Christmas came. That is here this weekend. So I hope you spend time with your family and enjoy it. But my guest this week, Gerry Hogan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Hey. Appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. Want to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I kind of grew up all over New England. My family lived in Billerica when I was born, and then we moved to Portland, Maine for a few years, and my dad got a job up there, and then we moved down to Avon. So kind of a little bit, I lived in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts pretty much my life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I do love going to Portland. For sure. Like I went to my first Sea Dogs game this year.
Oh, cool.
That's a great stadium.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
I have to ask though. So Billerica, were you very far removed from Tom Glavine during that time period?
Oh, I'm much older than Tom.
Okay. Is he? Because he's got a I don't know what year he did, but
yeah. And we moved in '65.
Okay.
Up to Maine. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, it was probably before he was born, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know he's a Hall of Famer and everything. And
yeah.
When Mike moved, because my brother Mike just moved to Billerica, that was the biggest thing. I go, can we find a throwback Tom Glavine Billerica High School jersey? Does that exist?
Yeah. That'd be a cool item.
So now I want to ask this. What are 3 things that everybody should know about you?
I come from a great big family. There are 9 kids in my family, 6 kids in my wife's family. And actually, our first date, it was a blind date. My brother set me up.
Okay. And
it was a family reunion in Gloucester. And there were over 100 cousins and aunts and uncles. And that was, and my wife went out on a second date. So that was pretty cool. And, we just love reunions and get-togethers and all that. And I guess on the teas, it was mentioned I'm going to be a grandfather, and I'm thrilled about that. And another thing is I love learning and education. It's always been something that I found pretty interesting. I love to learn new things, and I'd love to tinker with things. Love to take things apart, see how they work, see if I can put them back together, and all that. So those are kind of the things that have interested me in my life.
Awesome. So do you kind of feel like you're kind of like I feel like we could always be learning something. Like, do you see yourself as like a lifetime learner?
Absolutely. And I would say one of the biggest inventions in our lifetime, if not the biggest, is the internet. For years, it was until Al Gore took credit for it.
I invented the internet.
But it was probably like the 80s or late 80s. Before that, when I was growing up, we had encyclopedias.
Yeah.
You had to go look in there, and it was always out of date. And there were always things, questions would come up, arguments over sports, when something happened. And now with Google, we all take it for granted. You settle an argument, or you just have a general question. How do I do that? You pick up your phone. And I also, I speak German. I was a German major in college. And one of the greatest resources for learning a language is the internet and the digital stuff you can get. The best experience of all is actually living there and speaking it day to day, but you can almost get the same thing from like watching German television, which you can do, reading magazines, listening to the radio. There are just so many things that the world just is at your fingertips, literally, in a way that we never had before. And I just imagine my own parents, back in the day, they never had a computer. And to think of them having a phone, I chuckle thinking about, what it would mean to them and how they would react to it. It would just be pretty comical, I think.
It's really crazy because honestly, growing up, for me, was the internet age was starting to come about. Obviously, my generation was probably the first like young people to have, AOL Instant Messenger,
right?
Where you could, go home and talk to your friends online. And I think I asked out my first girlfriend on Messenger.
No kidding.
Because it definitely made it easier than actually have to do that in person. But I have to say too is like another funny thing is that your teacher always would say, "You're never gonna have a calculator in your pocket all the time." Not true. So.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, there are drawbacks to having the internet. I think people have a lot shorter attention span
Sure.
because things come at them in 3 to 5 minutes or 240 characters or whatever it is. And it must be really hard for a teacher in school today to compete when all the students they can put it behind their book or whatever. It must be incredibly hard to to keep a group of kids' attention. When you have that there, and then all the issues with social media and the abuse and stuff like that. I mean, there's the good with the bad, but it's an incredible invention.
No, it is for sure, and you're right. It has allowed everybody to have an opinion
Yep.
on the internet, and I like to troll on there quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the other part of it. Yeah.
And hopefully people don't take things too serious. I have to ask this, and this is the big question on Let Freedom Ring. We ask every guest this, which is why it's called Let Freedom Ring.
Yep.
What does it mean to you to be an American?
That we can vote. That is something that I don't think anyone should take for granted. Being able to, have your opinion count, have it matter. And I've voted, I think, in pretty much every election since I turned 18. And part of that is trying to educate yourself on who the candidates are and what the issues are. But everyone should go out and vote. And I think even if you haven't educated yourself completely, a lot of people I don't really know anything. You have to go vote the first time, and then you'll see, okay, this is the process. These are the people that are running, and it makes a difference. And to be an American is, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the way you do that for the most people is we all decide what the rules are and who's gonna, we elect our representatives to make laws and all that. And if a majority of the people don't like it, they can change it. They can change the people that make the laws. And that's something that, I think recently with all the political turmoil, the one really good thing that came out of it is I think the number of people voting, the percentage of people that are voting has gone way up over years past. It was really low for a while, and so I think a lot of people realize that it's in their interest to vote, and hopefully people would be motivated to even run for certain things, and have some kind of public service. So I think that's what it's all about for me to be an American is my voice, even though I'm one person. I use it every chance I get.
Now I got to ask this: do you think, like on a smaller government scale, like let's say your state rep, your mayor, your aldermans, do you see that almost more important? Like on a national stage, I feel like to be a politician, you got to have some money, right?
Yeah.
You have to have some backing, which I wish it was more fair. That's why when a lot of people criticize Cortez there out of New York, I go, that girl had nothing, and she made it to the House of Representatives.
Right.
But do you think part of it is you have to be more involved in your local, because you do have more say. I could run for state rep, you could
Yep.
run for state rep, or whatever it is. On a national stage, I just don't know if everybody could run. I feel like you have to have some money behind that,
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, I've tried to, keep up with the newspaper and stuff like that. And I think it was in the 80s, the Supreme Court threw out all the Federal Election Commission rules about how much money people could donate. And it's kind of a shame that a good part of U.S. congressman or a senator, how much time they have to spend on the phone with people trying to raise money. They all go across the street from the Capitol and they spend hours a week, hours, like almost, I guess like a day out of their week, talking to people trying to raise money. And with money comes influence. So, Before that, yeah, I think there was a chance, and especially in New Hampshire, there's been talk about our losing our first in the nation primary. We'll still be up there, but, we have a unique opportunity in New Hampshire to meet a lot of the politicians that come through here that want to run for president. But to get back to your question on the local politics, that's really critical too. Whether it's the school board or the board of aldermen or the mayor, they do have a direct influence. And there are people on both sides. They want to keep their taxes low. Some people, it's a hardship to have their taxes go too high. They can't afford it. Other people, need different services. I think in our particular area, I am pretty satisfied. I think we're pretty well served with the services that we get for our tax money, and people are paying attention to it. And that's because there's a give and take. They have people on the Citizens for Limited Taxation. I'm not sure what the group is in Nashua or in the Nashua area that looks at every line item. And it's good for people to do that. It would be a shame to have money that's just wasted or with corruption and stuff like that. So I think we're pretty lucky where we are, that people are motivated and they are people take it seriously. And I think New Hampshire, I read a statistic that per capita, per person, New Hampshire representatives are paid the least of anybody.
It's only about $200 for a state rep per year.
Right.
You have to. My friend, he's been on the show, but Jesse Martineau was doing it for a while, and he had to change his work hours if you want to do it. And we both work for a very nice college that allows you to be flexible with your hours. Yep. So he was now working weekends to make sure he could make the meetings to be a state rep.
Yep.
And it's just like, yes, it's pretty bad how they're compensated.
Right.
You're either retired or you work weird hours or
Exactly.
you're rich.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah, you have to be pretty motivated and dedicated to do a job like that. And I think we also have more representatives per person in New Hampshire. So there are a lot of people in Concord that are meeting. So I think that we are well represented. But that's also, the local politicians become state politicians, become national politicians. So this is really where everyone starts. You might get elected to the school board, then maybe you get elected to, mayor or selectman or alderman or whatever, and then, there are statewide races and all that. So, yeah, it's a great system, and I think that's what our American system is really all about. Is everyone gets to vote, we all decide, and some people want to limit the vote. You have to be, I don't know, educated or wealthy enough or have a stake in the game. Or I've heard all kinds of arguments about why we should limit voting. But if you're a legal citizen, and you live in this country, you have, a right and an obligation.
And that's
to
kind
choose
of
how it's
a follow-up question that you say that, because we know there's been a lot of crazy things that have gone on in the last couple of years. Do you think democracy can be fragile?
Yeah, definitely. And just a short aside, as a German major, one of the things that really got me interested in German language and German culture was the Nazi era. I have no German ancestry, but I remember reading about how this advanced country descended into this hell where all their rights were stripped away, and they went on this horrible war and killed millions of people and all that. And I was like, how could that happen? How could this guy convince, well, and it wasn't just one guy, but Hitler was able to get everyone to buy in. Yeah, exactly. How did that happen? So I got to, I learned more about the history of Germany before and after, and the Cold War, and how the country was divided and all that. And then in the last 10 or 15 years, you know, I look at some of the things in the United States, and Trump is not Hitler, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of politics and stuff, but there were, during the last 6 or 7 years or so, there have been a lot of trends that were eerily like what was going on in Germany, you know, with the economy and with, you know, people being marginalized. Back then, you know, obviously it was Jewish people that were blamed for everything, and now it's immigrants. You know, immigrants are, you know, causing all these problems, and where do they think they're, you know, why do they get to come here? But you know, we're a nation of immigrants. Yeah. My parents, my grandparents, you know, weren't born in this country, and you know, it's strange to see how things have evolved. But I think, again, the good thing that's come of it is I think a lot of people have really kind of appreciated what we almost lost, you know, with some of the things that happened. So yeah, I agree. It is fragile and it has to be protected. But I think the impulses of the good, you know, have outweighed the bad. And I think people kind of, you know, realized, hey, you know, we can be better than this.
In a lot of, like, I don't have a problem with people having an issue with illegal immigration, as long as when you're explaining it to me, I don't get that hint of racism, because that has definitely been like, you do have people that can explain it and they say this is why I don't believe it's a good thing, and that's okay. But then there's always that weird hint of hatred that also comes through when they're explaining it. I feel like it's the same way with like the transgender community and a lot of other communities, is that you don't agree with everything happening here, but then you show your true colors of you're angry about some other stuff about who they are.
Right.
And that's where I go, okay, you're making an enemy. You don't just have a disagreement. You want an enemy.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I think that hits the nail on the head. You know, again, when in younger days, when politicians could get along, it was, you know, they might argue and scream at each other in a room in, you know, the Capitol or the State House or whatever, but afterwards they could be friends. You know, it wasn't as personal. It wasn't like you're the enemy. And compromise it was a good thing. Compromise today is really a dirty word.
True.
You know, you're betraying us. You know, if you, but I mean, you can't keep swinging from left to right and left to right. You know, if people don't come up with a, you know, and that's what democracy is about. Majority say we want to do this, and you know, there are guardrails in place so that, you know, nothing, you know, we have the Constitution and all that to protect us from, you know, democratic rule getting out of hand. I mean, you have to get, you know, super majorities if you're going to change anything really radically. But I think there are a lot of people that, let's face it, a lot of traditional things have changed in just a generation or two. You know, gay rights 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't a discussion. You know, transgender even less so. The fact that people of color were discriminated against for years, it was like, you know, you didn't really talk about that. And now we are starting to have that discussion. And, you know, I think it's people who were used to having things a certain way. You know, I've got my job and I've got my family and, you know, I'm whatever. A lot of the traditional things that people for generations counted on aren't there. And they're like, who's to blame for it?
Yeah.
I remember, not to, again, get too deeply into politics, but one pundit said, where are all these immigrants coming from? When did white America agree that this was okay, that we could let all these people in? Did we have a vote on this or something? And it was like, okay, like you said, can we talk about, immigration in a rational way without, you know,
Towing the lines of like, wait a second,
right,
you know.
right.
So I agree with you. I just want to bring one point that I was just thinking from what you're saying is, I always do think though, and this is why I love the United States. This is why I'm. There was so much thought that went into naming this show, and I think that people don't understand is this country is constantly healing itself in different ways, where other countries are not. You know, we talk about gay rights in this country, and now it's a legal thing. You don't want to see steps back, because I feel like the United States is always this country that has some dark history, but it's always evolving. It's constantly evolving into what's acceptable and how we're accepting more people. And I think that's something that we sometimes get so hooked on the negative and sometimes forget, like, we're making strides that other places aren't. And you can still bring up, there's other countries that are too, but like for us here, we are making strides.
Yeah.
We are doing that. And that's because we do live in a free country.
Right.
You know, so I love that. This is a great debate. I love this, or a great conversation. I know we've had a lot of great conversations. So I do want to ask this. You went to Tufts University.
Yep.
How was that experience? Was that tough? How was life there?
It was a great 8 years. I went full-time for 3, and then I went to work for the university full-time.
Okay.
And, I got free tuition, and that's how I finished up. But I got to take advantage of so many different things. I spent a year in Germany. I spent a year in D.C. I ended up working for my congressman. And, you know, it's when I worked there, I worked for the dining service, and we had a pub, so I worked second shift, and that way I was able to take classes. And that was a great experience. My favorite part, though, was going to Germany, I think. You know, I'd taken German in high school, and I explained how I got interested in it, and to be able to go there, and it's still my favorite place to go visit outside of the U.S. You know, it gives me a chance to speak it again, and there are so many different interesting places and so much history there, and the way that Germany has healed itself, I think, is fascinating. To go from the Nazi era to being split into a capitalist and a communist country, reunifying, and their constitution, and you know, they've always seemed to have a good economy, and you know, it's a very, there've been some scary things recently, you know, with the far right over there, you know, doing some things that are kind of like our January 6th. But they have a strong constitution, and you know, I think it's a very interesting country. So that was probably my favorite part. And going to D.C., I enjoyed that too.
Awesome. Now, what's your day-to-day look like now? Because we kind of talked about this texting-wise.
Yeah.
You're kind of like a training director, exactly? Or?
Yeah. That's my title.
Okay.
And I've tried lots of different things. You know, I came to the heating business after working at a bank. I worked in a bank for about 10 years in different levels. And like I said, I love to tinker with things and take things apart and figure out how things work and all that. And I kind of segued into the heating business because I went to work for a company that needed some IT help. So I helped them do that. And I learned the heating business. I got an oil burner's license. And then I went out on the road and met with contractors who were putting in boilers. Boilers is probably the biggest. You use a boiler for heating if you have radiators. So I would go out and you know, work with customers and help them figure out how to solve problems. And it was kind of a terrifying but exhilarating education. The learning curve was pretty steep because, you know, I worked inside and I got to learn from some great guys with experience. And then when I went out on the road, being a novice, really, I would go into a basement, and this old timer who's been doing it all his life has a problem with this boiler. And he says, hey, listen, you got 5 minutes to tell me what's wrong with this, or it's coming out and you're paying for it. It's like, okay, so you get focused really quick.
Yeah.
And so after, doing that for a few years, I saw some common things that would happen. And, I kind of built up a little experience. And then I started to do training, I had taken courses and got an oil burner's license. And so I would teach classes on oil burners and on steam boilers and hot water boilers and things like that. And then the company that my company represented, the manufacturer, said, would you like to do it for us? So then in 2007, I started to go on the road. So I go pretty much the East Coast and the Midwest, Chicago, where they have boilers. The rest of the country, like especially in the South and the far, like the West Coast and all that, they have furnaces, which a lot of people around here have too. But the older houses, the traditional heat is with a hot water boiler. So that's kind of my specialty, and especially after COVID, but there's been a generational change, especially in the oil heating business. And oil heating is kind of going away, but with gas heating also. A lot of these guys have been in, they're multi-generational. You'll have someone whose father and grandfather worked in this business. And when they get to a certain age, if their kids aren't interested in it, they sell it. So there's been a lot of consolidation, bigger companies, and there haven't been, with the retiring of the experienced people, you get a lot of guys coming in that don't really know, they feel lost.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I did with my company is I would do training at the factory, but I said, let's get something that we can go to the customer's shop or to the supply house, where the customers buy their boilers. And we built this trailer. First one had like 3 boilers in it, and then the bigger one had like 6 or 8 boilers in it. And we would go there, and I'd have like an oil tank and a propane tank, and I'd show them how it works. And my pitch to them, to the owners of the company, was, wouldn't you rather have your technicians see a boiler for the first time in a trailer where they can take it apart and put it back together, or would you rather have them see the boiler for the first time in the customer's basement at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Probably not the best
when
idea.
they're sleep deprived, you know? So we got doing that, and then there were some specialty things that we kind of developed with that. So the bulk of what I do is training, showing people how to use not just my boilers, but there are some certain things that, like a steam heating system. There's a guy that wrote a book, The Lost Art of Steam Heating, and he said all these heating systems were put in by dead men because nobody puts in a new steam heating system. So the last new steam heating system was probably maybe in the 40s or 50s.
Oh, wow.
And the guys that put them in, they aren't around anymore. So, they've had replacement boilers, but all the piping that goes to the radiators and stuff, there's a lot to, not a lot, but there are a few things, and guys get very intimidated, like, is the boiler going to blow up? And there's a lot of safety stuff in there. So it's just walking them through it. Okay, it's simple. When you heat water, it's going to turn into steam, and it's going to go up, and it's going to heat your house. And then it just comes back, and you reheat it, and it's, there's like 12 different rules that you have to pay attention to. Other than that, it's just, putting your finger on what the last guy did that messed it up,
No, awesome. Definitely, it's things are always changing, which is, that's kind of fascinating. And that, you say, like, all these people aren't around anymore that could do this, so we got to get the new people into it.
Right.
I do want to get into the fan questions because you have a couple from your son, Tim, who is a former guest. We did it on location in Virginia.
Nice.
He wants to know, and I think this is a dig at your son-in-law, Derek. Why do you think Boston sports are so much better than Chicago sports?
Thank you, Tim, for getting me in trouble. I think it's crazy how similar Boston and Chicago sports are.
I can see that.
The 4 major teams, the Bears, Pats, the Celtics, and the Bulls, the Sox and the Cubs, and maybe the White Sox, and then the Blackhawks and the Bruins. They have very similar histories in hockey. You know, they were one of the 6 original teams. In football, the Giants were around for a lot longer, but you know, they had their dynasty with George Halas and the legends on that. But we've got Bill Belichick, who created a legend here. The heroes, you got Tom Brady and you got Walter Payton. You
True.
know, those guys are legends. You know, you have Bill Russell and/or Larry Bird, and you got Michael Jordan.
And Scottie Pippen, let's not forget.
Everybody knows
how much
Scottie
I love
Pippen.
Scottie
Yes,
Pippen.
yes, I did. Yep, yep. So we'll put Russell and Bird with MJ and Scottie. And then, you know, how about with the Cubs and the Red Sox? The drought in the World Series.
That's actually pretty amazing because
Isn't
the Cubs 1908, right?
Yep.
And the Red Sox were 1918, so it was about 10 years.
Yeah.
And watching the ball, obviously the Red Sox one meant more, but even watching the Cubs win, I just hate that they beat the Indians because like I don't have any gripes with them. I think Francona was already the coach there,
Yep.
so
Yeah, and I love Francona.
he was one of our best coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. Classy guy, too.
I want to get through some more because Tim
Sure.
had a bunch.
Okay.
I think you're pretty excited to be a grandfather in 2020.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
think there's any doubt about that. That was a great gender reveal. I appreciate Karen and Derek inviting me. Do you miss living on Pennachuck Street? Is that right next to the school, kind of?
No, Pennachuck Street is down across from the old waterworks. I think it's now apartments or condos.
Oh,
or something.
okay.
The big one, ice cream.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That's
okay.
on the corner of the street. As a matter of fact, I remember
Makes sense. Yes.
getting
okay.
Christmas trees there too.
Yeah.
Pennachuck was great. I mean, we have so many great memories there because my kids were little there.
Yeah.
You know, there was a whole bunch of kids in the neighborhood. You had Britton's Landing over on one side. You know, we had the Rancourt playground behind us. The neighbors were great. They used to love to get together, and you know, so many great memories there. The house was a little small, and that's why the big reason that we moved. But we had so much fun there. You know, especially my kids were little.
Yeah.
So all the great memories of, you know, going back on the Rancourt playground when it was frozen over and skating on.
That is the big one playground, right? Am I wrong on this?
Rancourt is a little bit small. It's got a baseball field,
Yeah.
and just a little playground equipment.
Yeah.
You know, a merry-go-round and a swing set and all that.
Merry-go-rounds. I can't believe they used to let us do that. You know.
Oh, I know. And the jungle gym. The jungle gym made out of steel.
Pretty sure Mike broke his collarbone on a jungle gym at some point.
I can believe it. I can believe it.
He also wants to know, what part of your golf game would you improve?
Tim. Definitely my putting.
That's hard.
Yes, I've straightened out my drive this year. A buddy of mine showed me a new grip, so I'm very comfortable getting off the tee and fairway and all that. Chipping, I think I've always been pretty good because I've had to. You know, when you're in the woods as much as I am, you know, you learn to chip and pitch out of the woods. But putting, it's just practice, practice, practice. And my dream is to make a practice facility in my backyard. I'd love to put in a putting green and maybe like a driving net and maybe a sand trap.
Okay.
You know, and then whenever I have, you know, a few minutes, just go out and practice. So I'll have to go on the internet and look up how to make a putting green. And see if I can, you know, if I can get away with it. You know.
Gonna pass this, you know, pass the wife first.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
He also wants to know one more question from Tim Hogan. Which event would you rather attend? Sox in World Series Game 7 or Pats in the Super Bowl?
That is a tough one. Tim and I have actually game planned a Super Bowl trip a couple of times.
He's been.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But we have, you know, I mean, we had multiple chances, 9 chances to go to a Super Bowl. You know, we've been to a bunch of Super Bowl parades. But I would say if it's a game 7 at Fenway, I would go with that. Just because win or lose, you know, you come out, it's Fenway, and, you know, you come out of there and, you know, everyone's either cheering their brains out or drowning their sorrows. And, you know, I think it would be, Game 7 World Series at Fenway, I'd have to go with that. I'd love to go to a Super Bowl too. But if I had to pick one or the other, I'd say Fenway.
I'm pretty sure Tim doesn't. He hasn't had a child yet, but I think he sold his firstborn to go to that. Right?
Yeah, I think I saw the IOU, but yeah.
Which one did he go to? I'm trying to remember. Was it the?
He went to the last one. So he and I
yeah, that's right. Okay.
went to the Tuck Rule game.
Oh wow.
The snowball game.
So he must have been. He must have been young.
I think it was like 9 or 10.
Oh wow.
Because it was 2002. Yeah, he was probably like 10, maybe 11, and that was Brady's first playoff game.
Last one in Foxborough, in the Foxborough Stadium.
Last one in Foxborough Stadium.
Yeah.
And so he saw Brady's first playoff victory, and I think the last Super Bowl was the last Patriots playoff victory for Brady.
Yeah, because they lost the Titans. I was at Brady's last game, so I never get to have the joy that Tim maybe felt that day.
Yeah.
Hey, if your dad took you to the Tuck Rule game, you owe him a Super Bowl, Tim. Just want to ask real quick two things, because disaster in Vegas. Mac Jones is getting ripped on about missing that tackle. My honest opinion,
was not.
He was never going to have a shot at all. He never saw that coming.
Chandler Jones?
Yeah.
And would you want your quarterback, your lead quarterback, to try and tackle Chandler Jones?
You got Julian Edelman out here ripping him. I go, guys, leave the kid. I'm sick of this. They're ruining this kid.
Yeah.
I know he's a little bit emotional. And people don't like his facial expressions, but they're facial expressions. Right. Relax.
Right.
What do you think is Belichick? This is not do your job anymore.
Right.
This is I don't know what the hell I saw on Sunday.
Right.
I've never seen you kneel, you go into overtime. I understand that was a bad call right before. You kneel, you take your chances. What the hell was that?
I tell you, it's the biggest factor, I think, and there are a few of them. It all comes down to coaching. I mean, he's still the greatest coach of all time, but there are a couple of factors. He typically runs a fairly complex offense, and his scheming, defense and offense. They've changed the preseason workouts. They've changed the preseason games. And so when he's trying to develop all this stuff in his players, I think he tends to need a lot of time. Even when he was successful, he used to lose like the first, 3 games. Well, he'd lose a bunch of games in the first 6, and people would freak out. It's like, oh my God, and on to Cincinnati. Remember that one? So it takes a while for his teams to gel. So that's part of it. The other part of it is every time a coach falls out of the Belichick tree, he always takes a bunch of guys with him. And you can only have so much brain drain out of it. Having said that, I think bringing Judge and Patricia back to run the offense was a mistake.
Yeah, and people have been saying that since preseason.
Right.
I mean,
we're going to simplify it. Simplify it for who?
Yeah. It's a dumpster fire.
It
really is right now. And there's worse teams in the NFL, and I want that to be known.
Oh yeah, of course.
There are worse teams.
But you're looking at Bill Belichick's team, But I think it's really a tribute to Josh McDaniels, how much he got out of Mac last year, and what a difference he's got this year. But it's more than that. I mean, Dante Scarnecchia is gone; he's retired. All the guys that have come through that Belichick brought, and he also had a lot of leaders. Now, I think the Patriots are one of the youngest teams in the NFL.
I could see that. Yeah, there's no names besides Judon that you're like, that's a household name.
You got Devin McCourty.
McCourty, obviously, he's been there for a while.
Matthew Slater and the special teams. But back in the day, like when in the 2001 season, he brought in a whole bunch of guys who were leaders. Some of them had been with the Giants, some of them had been with other teams. And you had guys like Teddy Bruschi and Willie McGinnis. These are all guys that showed the younger guys the way. They don't have that now.
No, they don't. I think what's irking me is that it just looks so poorly coached. That end of that game made the least amount of sense of anything I've ever seen. We're in a tie game. We're lateraling the ball when you have no chance to get to the end zone where you are.
Right. If there's 10 seconds left and you're behind, yeah,
then it's
give it
all
a shot.
out.
But
yeah.
if it's tied, what are you doing?
I'd never seen anything like that. And when the ball was thrown in Mac's direction and Chandler Jones gets it, what was Mac's? He must have been like, "Is this real life?"
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
And it just wasn't like he always talked about situational football. Come on.
That's
and the penalties and
I've been arguing with people about the special teams giving up a block punt right before the halftime. Right. We're calling timeout when we finally can get in the end zone. Okay, but all of that I can forgive. That ending of the game, I have never seen anything dumber in sports, and I'm sure there was, but I can't think of it right now. That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And that shows me that these players, they haven't bought in. It's not do your job. It's make something stupid happen, and you have no chance to do that.
Right. I was going back and forth with Tim at the end of the game, and I said, "This is our butt fumble." You know, this is
more embarrassing, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah,
because the butt fumble, okay, whatever, that could happen. Everything's kind of
miscommunication. Yeah, right.
You know, this was just dumb, like as dumb as you get.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing that in a flag football game. You know, I want to go through these quick because I want to get to buy or sell. Do you have a top 5 favorite movies?
Yeah, Casablanca.
Yes. Oh, Humphrey Bogart guy.
Yep.
Love Humphrey.
And again, the Roosevelt administration wanted Americans to know why our GIs were going to North Africa. So they asked Hollywood to make a movie about it.
And it became one of the, I mean, without a doubt, it's probably one of the top 10 movies of all time.
Yeah. Jaws.
Ooh, yep.
I hate Steven Spielberg for making it. I have never been able to go in the ocean without looking over my shoulder ever since then, 1976.
And now the sharks are really at the Cape.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So thanks a lot. Yeah, and there are a couple of others. Trying to think off the top of my head, but you had some other categories?
Yeah, TV shows. Anything that you're watching right now?
Breaking Bad.
Yes.
It's got to be way up there.
And the rewatchability is amazing on those shows. You know.
Yep. So that was Dead to Me. That's a recent one with Christina Applegate and Linda Cardinelli.
Okay.
Both of them, obviously, Christina Applegate was in Married with Children and a bunch of other things. The Will Ferrell movie, Anchorman.
Oh yeah.
And a bunch of
she's great.
Yeah.
I guess she has
MS.
MS. Yeah.
And this last season, the final season, you could see that physically she had changed a little bit, but I think they integrated it into the story very appropriately. And the things that I like about a good movie or a good TV show is it starts with the writing. You know, if you have good writers, you know, that can give a good actor, you know, something to work with, you know, I think the writing on both of those were really good.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that Walking Dead ran out of. The writing was so good, because I'm rewatching like earlier episodes because now the show just ended, and I was like, man, I remember loving this show, and then the writing got so bad that I couldn't watch it anymore.
Yeah,
it's like longevity is almost like kills a show.
Yeah, yep. They run out of good ideas.
Do you have a favorite restaurant in Nashua?
I got a bunch of them.
Okay.
Cucina Toscana.
Okay.
They're good for Italian. What are some of the other ones? I actually wrote them down.
Oh, you did?
But that's a good one. I'm drawing a blank on the others. But yeah, it'll come to me.
That's good. We should get a bunch of people. I want to throw in with a bunch of people and buy the Garden. It's up for sale.
Oh, no kidding.
It has been, you know, and I will admit the Garden has been on the decline. It's my favorite spot in Nashua.
Yep.
Always has been since I was maybe in 7th grade. I think we rode our bikes there. It's just been on the decline, and you know.
What's their specialty?
Their sandwiches.
Oh, okay.
They have the bogs, the Big Poppy.
Wow.
The parcels, the
Tuna, I'm guessing.
Yes, that is. They have the Buckner, which is 2 pieces of white bread, and that's all it is. And it costs 1986. So hopefully someone buys that. Musical artists. Anybody stand out in your head?
Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. I kind of get into country music, the old time country music, with that NPR special that Ken Burns did.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah. So he did something on that, and I really, when you learn the backstory of how country music started, back in the 20s when, or especially in the 30s during the Depression, when most people didn't have enough to eat, but everyone had a radio.
Yeah.
So, that's what would keep people entertained and kind of kept them going with their lives. So there are a lot of stories in there. Louis Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
Again, kind of the backstory. He was adopted by a Jewish family, and they gave him his first music lessons. He spoke perfect Yiddish, and he, just became this really great human being and singer and trumpeter.
It's a Wonderful World, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fantastic song.
Yeah. So, I kind of like music that has some story behind it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I want to get to a new segment on the show that we've been using for a little bit that I've found really fun. It's buy or sell.
Okay.
I'm going to give you something. You tell me whether you're buying this or you're selling it.
Okay.
So either you want it gone or you're taking it.
Okay.
Matt Patricia is the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots.
Sell for pennies on the dollar.
It's everyone was saying this at the beginning of the season, and now it's like we're really seeing how bad it is with him.
I loved him as a defensive coordinator, and especially when he wore the
Goodell's a clown shirt. Yeah.
Yep. Unfortunately, good guy. I've heard he's a great guy.
Oh, and I'm sure, and I'm not one of those people like. People take sports so serious and they get personal. The only one one of the only players I don't care for is Kyrie Irving. I think he's a fraud. I think he says a lot of dumb things. And I think that he has said some things about Boston that he just either wants attention or he just thinks that's what's going to get over on a certain population, and it's just not. It's just I hate it. Mac Jones.
I would buy. Again, if it's going to take another year or two before I'd sell. If you get a decent coach and work with him, I think he's a buy.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, honestly, like, I'm just trying to compare it from last year. I thought the Patriots were on the up. Now, what were they, 10-6? We were still 16 games last year? This is the first year of 17, or was it last year?
I think last year we had.
All right, so maybe we're 10-7?
Yeah, I think it was 10-7, yeah.
So he looked like he was on the up, and then he got destroyed. The Bills, nothing could go right.
Right.
I thought he'd come back, but then Josh McDaniels left. Like, is this just how bad Matt Patricia is an offensive coordinator? Like, a lot of people want to blame Mac, and I just don't. But I could be wrong.
Well, I think there's no imagination with the offense. They throw Stevenson up in the middle of the line. He might break through like 1 out of 10 times, but usually he's going to get stopped either for 2 or 3, maybe 4 yards, or he'll get stuffed. And then so they'll do that a couple of times, and then they'll throw a screen, or it's just, it's so predictable. Why do you have to make the defense's job that easy? If they, and then of course you can tell when they're going to do, a jet sweep. It's like, okay, here we go. And they're just waiting for it. All their tendencies they got to be well documented. This is how you beat the offense. Now, the defense has kept them in some games, and actually won some games, with defensive points, but
it's not going to get you very far.
No.
Not going to even get you in the playoffs.
Nope.
The Boston Celtics right now.
Oh, I'm a buy on the Celtics. I'm very disturbed with the last 5 games, Charlotte and the Pacers, and I think a bunch of you guys are going.
Yeah, we're going a week from today, actually.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
Our annual Celtics extravaganza.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. So hopefully, we got Robert Williams back. We thought, hey, but I don't know. Maybe things were just going too well. Do you have any theories on what could be?
I think
they fall in a hole.
I think it's just basketball. It's like baseball. It's a long season.
True.
And you go in these droughts, and everybody.
That's true.
Like football, every week is so important, right? We're like it literally is in the NFL.
Yeah.
We're playing 82 games, 162 games.
That's true.
You fall into these guys are like, man, I'll be honest.
Look at last year with the Celtics.
Yeah.
The new year came, and all of a sudden, a couple of months in.
I think there's times in the NBA where players are like, I play a lot of games, and tonight's not going to be the night that I'm giving. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I don't blame them because there is a lot of games.
Very physical, running up and down the court. Yeah.
I care what you're doing at the end. You got to get enough to get there, and you want to get a good seed. But I would not blame one NBA player because I don't care how much they're getting paid. They're a human being, and that it takes a toll.
It's a long season.
Yeah. XFL is returning. You and your son and I should say, are big DC Defender fans. You buying or selling the XFL under the rock?
Sell. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sure it's great, but I really get enough with the NFL. I just, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna watch a little bit.
Maybe if I watch some, I'd get into it. Yeah.
When the MLR starts, though, that's what would you buy or sell the MLR, Major League Rugby? The Free Jacks, New England Free Jacks, were on a tear last year, blew it in the Eastern Conference Finals. Do you think rugby could have a place here in the United States?
Not likely. Unfortunately, it would be like soccer, only it doesn't have the worldwide attraction that soccer has.
No, they're many, many years away from being on even the level of an MLS, which I don't even think is like. I could care less about MLS, to be honest. Yeah. I'm not a big soccer guy. I watch the World Cup when the U.S. is in, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I am hoping that it grows because I love rugby. So, yeah. Professional wrestling, buying or selling?
I've never gotten into wrestling, to be honest. As a kid, of course, I'm trying to remember. Andre the Giant.
Oh, yeah.
I remember him when I was a little kid. And trying to remember who the other guys were. But since then, no, I haven't really followed wrestling.
Okay, so selling on that.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. The Buffalo Bills right now, are you buying or selling that?
Buying. I think, who's the the linebacker that just went on the IR?
Oh, God. He was from the...
Raiders. He came from Denver to Von Miller.
Yeah.
That's kind of disturbing. But to be honest, I don't. Aside from some of the stuff that's been thrown on the field by the Bills Mafia, they're a likable team. The quarterback, the coach. I think for the most part they are a fun team to watch. And I think I told Tim that if the Patriots are out of it, I think I'd follow the Bills. Well, same with the Dolphins. Jets not so much. I don't think they're ready.
I can't root for, and I know Buffalo's in New York, but it's not New York City.
Right. Yeah.
I have my issues with the Bills Mafia. They put me through a table.
Did they really?
Well, I was deep undercover at the time. My buddy Texas actually put me through it. But I will say this: those fans are a little crazy because we were there. They were playing the 49ers. We were just having fun. My buddy Jesse's a diehard, and I watch the Bills games with him when we can get together. And we got in this whole thing about going to Buffalo one year because I wanted to see what the Bills Mafia was about, and he'd always wanted. He was from Arizona, but he grew up a Bills fan.
Yeah.
And I will say this, though. We ran into a guy with a Celtics jersey just assuming he was like a New Englander. Next thing you know, we're circled up by all these guys telling us that Brady's not the best quarterback and it's me and my buddy Kyle because we're separated from the group. We got about 9 guys.
Oh man.
And I'm like, all right, guys, this is like sure. Joe Montana's. If that's really your debate, we're not fighting you guys. So we were just like, we're out of here. But there's
Wow.
they get a little crazy there. 2 more. I want to ask this. What about the San Francisco 49ers? Now, this guy Purdy's come in. Garoppolo's hurt, but I think this team looks really good.
Yeah.
What do you think? The 49ers
I agree.
buy
I'm
or
a
sell?
buy. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a buy. Yep.
All right.
It was a shame that Jimmy G and Brady couldn't have played that game a couple of weeks ago. It would have been fun. I mean,
Well, I shared I didn't share it. It was on my memories where they came out with the schedule. It was the 49ers and Patriots. And I said, we're going to see Jimmy G versus Tom Brady because I didn't think Brady would actually leave. And then he left. So we still haven't got this game.
yeah. Yep.
All right, last one. Buy or sell. Big softball guy. Big Bears fan. Married into your family. Buying or selling Derek Brown?
I would buy. I would buy anytime. He's giving me a grandson. Derek, I love you, buddy.
Yeah, I think we all love Derek.
A granddaughter. I'm sorry. We had the gender reveal. Don't tell Kara I said that.
I don't want to say I guessed right.
You did guess right.
Yeah.
But yes, and maybe we'll get a boy too. But I'm thrilled with getting Amelia. And who knows? Maybe this time next year I'll have 2 grandchildren.
Yeah, you never know.
But I'm just so thrilled. And Derek is such a good dude.
We ever since we met him back in, and I hate giving him his roses here, but ever since we met him in 2018, we're like, that's one of us.
He certainly, and you know what he calls you guys?
The
Bublés.
The Bublés. I asked him for questions. He just gives me a smart ass answer. But anyways, Gerry, I really appreciate this.
This
has
was
been
a lot of
blast.
fun, buddy.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah.
But everybody out there, we want to just say again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays,
Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah, Happy any holiday that you celebrate. And again, and we touched upon this, Bill Munson, we love you. We're going to miss you. But everybody out there, please be safe. Have a great holiday. And until next time, let freedom ring.
Amen.